Delise turns out are my neighbors at my shop. Okay, they're just across the street. So I don't know, maybe 6 months ago or so, Christian came over, introduced himself, and was really impressed with what he is trying to do. And since then, we've had several interesting discussions about ways to potentially collaborate, work together. I was really pleased that Christian's agreed to be our keynote speaker this morning. And so I'd like to welcome Christian to come on up, please.
Thank you, Terry. I'm really humbled to speak here, seeing it's my first state of charge. So I'm going to talk about our mission at Delise Automotive and what inspired me to be crazy enough to build a car company. So I made a career out of designing cars. I have an industrial design background, and I was fortunate enough to work my way into the industry and work for some big names. Met all my heroes, realized they're regular people like you and us. Worked for companies like Toyota, Porsche, Volkswagen Group, and I'm part of the development of the world's first hyperbaric ambulance. So I kind of got hooked on making cars that don't exist yet, bringing them to fruition. So we get to do cool stuff like this, where we design and forecast the future. So it's not just drawing pretty pictures, it's actually looking at problem solving, and again, really trying to forecast what's going to happen in 5+ years. This has gotten increasingly difficult in the last 10 years in the industry, as most of you know. So where does this all start? Well, the obsession starts way back. This is some point in the 80s. I'm sitting on my dad's lap there in one of his old 911s. And this is my son in front of my 911, which I sold to help start this car company. That car in particular, interestingly, I bought for around 30 grand and sold it 10 years later for about 3 times the price. Now that's an interesting concept, right? Cars that can appreciate in value over time. We'll come back to that a little bit later. So everybody in here has owned a laptop, right? How many of you have ever named it? By show of hands, 1, yeah, okay. That's about average percentage. Washing machines, right? When you get a new one, I mean, these things wash and labor to take care of the clothes on your back, right? How many of you have ever bragged about your new washing machine? Yeah, all right, a couple. This is typical. Now, how many of you have ever named a car by show of hands? Even if you're not a car person, this is a common percentage. Like, people have a relationship with cars, and I believe cars have a soul. I believe that soul is worth extending as long as possible. So this is my wife, Julie. She worked for Tesla for about 7 years early on. She's a little bit younger than I, and truth be told, she never owned a combustion car. Her first car was a 2013 Model S, so about 180 miles of range in the original Oxford Green, which they don't make anymore. She loves this car, or she loved it. She's not a car person, but she fell in love with this car, and when we were having our first kid, the little boy you saw there, it started bugging out. It wouldn't boot up in time. Can't have her stuck in a parking lot and the thing won't turn on when she's getting kids in the car. When we sold this car for a newer Tesla, she bawled her eyes out. This was, again, a person not into cars, but fell in love with the movement of EVs and fell in love with this car in particular. So more proof, cars have soul. And it brings up an interesting topic about longevity and life cycle. So this is a kid's movie, The Brave Little Toaster, another relic of the 80s. The premise, if you've never seen it, is these appliances are left behind in an old house, and their master, their owner, leaves, and they spend all their life waiting for him to come back before the toaster leads them on a journey to go find him. It's a cute tale about inanimate objects having life. This movie is not for kids, though. It's a pretty traumatic experience, especially at the end of the film where they find themselves in a scrapyard and they're around cars that are getting crushed. And they face, anything with life faces the inevitability of death. And so I found that to be an interesting concept. Disney really ran with this, giving life to inanimate objects, cars and the Toys franchise. But like everything else, they face the inevitable death and fear of death. This is Toy Story 3 where they're coming up on an incinerator. So again, you give something life, it's going to face the potential of death. In Cars, this is Lightning McQueen having an existential crisis in Cars 3 where he questions his own relevance. Newer cars are faster. Is he still going to be able to race? So not just life and death, but relevance and appreciation and obsolescence is a common theme in Cars. And again, cars have soul. So this is Alfred Sloan. He's one of the great minds early on in General Motors. He's considered one of the best businessmen of the 20th century. He essentially invented planned obsolescence. General Motors was, the biggest company in the world, and they were starting to worry that they're going to run out of new clients to sell cars to. So he came up with a bunch of practices, one of which is the color and trim department. The color of the year, the grill, the next new grill, kind of forcing this idea of, well, we got to give them incentive to buy the next new product because it's a great business model. But surely, GM never bragged about planned obsolescence. But yeah, they did. So this is also, fun fact, why DeLorean ended up leaving, because he just got tired of the unethical practice of selling something that was not designed to last, and so he wanted to build an ethical sports car. So this is not a new concept that we're grappling with here. Yeah, the ugly side of planned obsolescence. This is a picture from Dieselgate cars that were onto the crusher. Now, diesel in Europe for many years was competitive with hybrids and alternative fuels because it got great gas mileage. But as we learned, the German car companies found out the hard way that is not a solution. But unfortunately, all of these cars and more were crushed, in the middle of their life. Rightfully so, because they were polluting. But it kind of gives you a scale of what planned obsolescence can do if not handled properly. When I worked at Volkswagen, they hated when I put this picture up. So let's go back 10 years. It's 2016. The Model 3 just came out, the first high-volume electric car. Great progress. Lucid, Faraday Future, Zoox, over $2 billion were invested in 2016 alone on just EV startups, let alone the billions invested since then in the EV transition phase, right? Good times. But as we learned, EV adoption is not guaranteed. It is happening, but the rate at which it's happened is somewhat unpredictable and adjusting all the time. This is not just because of politics. It's a mixture of reasons that I know this room is well acquainted with. But basically, it brings up a question of adoption and technology integration. So I became fascinated with this topic. We're not great at predicting things. We're great at forecasting, but predicting adoption rates is kind of tricky. In the 70s, you had the Limits to Growth published, also funded in part by the Volkswagen Group. This is considered the kickoff to the modern sustainability movement. This book, using 1970s computers, predicted we'd run out of resources by the late 90s. And it kind of created this urgency. What the book got wrong is our ability to adapt and technologically innovate on finding new resources. The Henry Adams curve. This was early 20th century predicting, we'll all have jetpacks and flying cars because the energy affordability to each house will go up 4 to 5% each year. Well, that also kind of plateaued in the 70s. And then you have the innovation curve, which many of you might be aware of. It's essentially, it's very hard to predict how we're going to adopt to things. And cars in particular, because they have souls, are particularly difficult to predict for a myriad of reasons. Remember this? So you got Goldie in Back to the Future 2, which was 2015, offering a hover conversion kit for $39,999. Now, that was a big number back then, but that actually seems like a deal now. I would totally pay that. So this idea of well, let's upfit. That's smart. Instead of buying a bunch of new product, right? Let's upfit. So this craze, which you guys are all a great part of, products and companies launched basically on the Restomod and upfitting philosophy. I don't think either of these are selling or still around, but amazing, beautiful examples of a highly polished product. Conversions from the derelict and highly patinaed EV conversion, Restomods, the E-Type Jag. I mean, this was very inspiring stuff, and it still is very inspiring, except as this room is well aware, it's a very expensive and complicated process because the cars were never designed for this in the first place, right? And why is that? Well, this is 120 years of automotive production innovation, right? Not much has changed. This is the marriage. This is the part on the assembly line where the drivetrain is permanently fixed to the car. And if you want to undo this, it's 20 plus hours at least before you even get started in separating a drivetrain, right? They were never designed to do this. All cars have this problem, not just combustion cars. So that's where we decided to innovate and disrupt. All right, so initially, I broke out of the industry and developed a concept just to deal with this, a swappable drivetrain unit. Now, something that would be modular, easy to disassemble, would be agnostic, so it could run hybrid, it could run hydrogen, it could run electric, and the subframe, in a hybrid sense, was designed to drop out in limited time. So, great idea, right? Well, we pitched this amongst the EV startup boom, and everybody kind of rolled their eyes. Like, why would you do anything other than just a pure EV? Well, this is going to be difficult. We need more seamless, adaptable solutions. So I went back and looked at why this problem is so entrenched in the industry. We've gotten better at increasing the lifespan. The average car is about 14 years old, but with that comes problems. 20% of the annual household budget is spent on cars. That's great for the industry, but they're getting more complex, and the depreciation is going up. This is average, so for regular cars, it's about 45% over 5 years. For EVs, it's about 55%. 60% increase in repairs across the board, so not just exotic high-end cars. All cars now have so much more electronics and part count that it's just getting to be a hard value prop that's not good for the industry or for the transition, quite frankly. This is kind of my doom and gloom slide. This is showing the compounding effect this has. So, depreciation rates go up, recalls go up, auto loan debt is through the roof, and they're incentivizing all new cars to go up 5, 6, 7 years financing. This is not good. If you combine all these elements, it's kind of a perfect storm for a market problem, right? And automakers know this because their margins have disappeared. They used to make 10% on every new car in profit. That's shrunk to less than 5. And again, that's across the board. So I started to feel like Michael Burry in 2008. I'm going around talking about this. I'm like, this is not sustainable for anybody. I'm trying to illustrate why it's not good, how we can do better. I went back into the industry for a bit and re-proposed active modularity. We need to incentivize a longer lifespan. But this is a real-time reaction I got in the boardrooms. Why would we do this? Our whole business model is based on selling stuff and then selling new stuff, right? So why would we ever change that? Well, you might have to change it one day, and that day is getting more and more relevant as we speak. So I went back to the drawing board, 2020. I looked at the model again, not just from a design perspective, but also a technology and business model perspective. So how do we be as future-proof as possible in segment? Because segment's also unpredictable. The market's now going back to minivans and sedans. So we developed a system principle set called regenerative adaptable design. This is beginning to formulate the concept which we're going to show today, where not just drivetrain swaps, but segment can swap. Different range, different powertrains, different wheelbases. If you separate the car in this capacity into what we call the cabin up top and the deck system below, you open up a whole new world of possibilities. And we do have the technology to do this more seamlessly now. The reason it takes so long to drop a powertrain out is because of all the connection points. Well, that can be optimized. The architecture can be optimized with new materials. So you can have a truly hybrid platform that acts like a unibody, but gives you body-on-frame benefits and modularity. This is how nature does it. Nature is diverse. Nature doesn't just kill off a species overnight. It iterates and evolves, and the regenerative principle can be found across the board in other industries. This is kind of like sustainability 3.0. You're seeing circularity come online in Europe. They're kind of forcing products to be more considered with life cycle. Different industries, you have hyperbaric oxygen, which encourages the body to repair itself non-invasively. You've got regenerative agriculture, which again focuses on health of the soil for long term. So nature naturally is diverse. It's not just one crop per acre. And then regenerative architecture. It's very modular, it's smaller footprint, it's more adaptable. So this regenerative theme is finding its way into other industries. And we proposed, well, how would we do that for automotive? That cabin and deck principle set breaks the car into two modules. Our cabin, which is the longevity asset. This is, we're really good at making cars that last a long time and don't rust. But the platform system being able to be plug and play now opens up, again, this whole world where our deck system can offer technology diversity, drivetrain diversity, and guess what? You can do this in under an hour. So this is a second generation. We're on to our third now. But the premise is on any two-post lift, you could drive your car into service, mechanically unbolt it, or have the tech do this, rather. The vitals are unplugged. The system knows what's going on so it doesn't shock it. Cabin is liberated. And then remote pilot that deck away. Maybe it needs service, or maybe the customer just wants a different thing, right? A completely different thing with different range, different costs, different needs. And then reverse process to reassemble. So architecturally rebolted, vitals and comms reattached, and then you can drive away and your app understands what happened and updates your lease, and you go on. This is enough of a technical feat, as you can imagine, in itself. But the reason we're doing it is bigger than just the novelty of the car itself. It's a scale benefit. So at scale, and I've had many data guys look at this, at scale, what this means is we don't have to predict the future anymore. Whatever future comes, energy diverse, fully EV, or a completely new type of battery tech or drivetrain tech altogether, over time you can retroactively update the fleet and hedge against trying to predict the actual future and hedge against uncertainty in the market, which is the biggest problem for all automakers. Trust me, they don't know how to product plan anymore. It's become the biggest problem they have. And then you enter China and all the other factors. So what we realized is that we're actually creating a circular system. We're creating a system that incentivizes looking at the end of life, optimizing cradle to grave, optimizing and incentivizing refurbishment of these platforms, and the suppliers that integrate EV tech and new, all the new technology hardware. This would be their ideal world, is to be able to integrate it more seamlessly instead of waiting for every new car program to come along, which may or may not be successful. So we've created a circular system that's easy to update, easy to bring back, easy to disassemble, and that's what we're building. So this is our current generation. This is what we're building now. The cabin unit is optimized for long life. It's got long life composites in its construction. Basically, in all cars, this is your safety cell anyway. So you can modulate crash zones, front and rear. And its plug-and-play interface is designed for updatability. So it has an operating system that realizes what it's plugged into and also anticipates updating its processor and its hardware over time. Because as you guys know, it's not just about the batteries. It's about the inverters. It's about the voltage systems. It's about everything. So we lock this part in, and it allows us to have our deck, which contains most of the depreciating hardware, all the part that's the liability to the consumer and to the industry, and liberates it. And you can start out with a basic EV deck. You can also modulate up to a completely different platform. Hybrids are going to be around for a while, right? We're still going to be making combustion cars for a while. So why not make them with the potential to be something better in the future while we still have to make them anyway? And this packaging exercise we've more than proven the feasibility. So this is not conceptual. This is what is actually possible. It's just going to be up to the small feat of proving it's more profitable. It's more profitable because it gives the OEMs more monetization points and easier serviceability, and that benefit is passed on to the consumer as well as the suppliers and the industrial ecosystem. So we're promoting truly circular car ownership. We're calling the system RAD. We haven't named the car yet, but we get asked that a lot. Since we're still, pretty early phase, we're set out on proving this. I don't believe in making concept cars that don't run, so we are making a running prototype that will do what you just saw and swap in a timely manner. So the whole business premise, which I don't want to bore you with numbers, but you'd own the main cabin asset and you'd lease the deck. And think of the best of the tech world mixed with the best of the analog. We want to balance these features. No gimmicks, analog door handles, analog wherever we can, but inevitably cars will become more and more digital. So we're leaning into what is inevitable anyway, and just trying to optimize it and give the consumers and the overall market a more natural, organic way to transition, and transition more effectively. So our mission is making planned obsolescence obsolete. And again, the same architecture, that car on the lower section has the same footprint as a four-door Mini, and obviously the one behind it is a larger HD truck. The same architecture. This has not really been done before. So while we're trying to do all this other stuff, why not optimize the architecture as well? So we're well underway with our systems development, operating system, IP. We spent a lot on intellectual property for a number of reasons. And while we are building this as a brand to make and sell cars, the idea is to ultimately license this so that everybody can benefit, kind of like the EV, initial EV transition. Like just give everybody the tech because it's hard enough, right? I'm lucky to have a very skilled SEMA tube chassis builder here in Colorado. So this is our first of 2 decks we're on. This is really materializing the EV skateboard, but with the architecture, again, anticipating disassembly. This is about a couple months ago, too. Honoring the old school, we have another separate coach build fabricator who uses English wheels and old traditional metal bending techniques to fabricate our first cabin. This is done on a wood buck. So again, we're high tech, but we're also leaning on traditional methods because I believe cars have souls. So the world deserves regenerative automobiles, and that is our mission to deliver. We are looking for partnerships. We have investors, but we're always looking for more. And we're based right here up the street from Terry. So we're a local, organic, homegrown shop. And yeah, I really appreciate the time to speak about this today. Thank you.